So you're ready to buy cyber liability insurance. You found an agent or you found a couple agents and you're just trying to figure out how much is this going to cost me and what are the contributing factors to making up that cost. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus and welcome back. So I'm not an agent, don't pretend to be an agent. I'm not sure I'll ever be an agent. But what I've done is I've went out and I've did some research and I've talked to an agent who has more than 25 years experience selling insurance and has been selling cyber liability insurance for the past 5 years. Now this agent is going to remain anonymous because he wants to be. So let's get into what makes up the cost of cyber insurance and what the typical cost for a typical business would be. All right, the first contributing factors to your cyber liability insurance are going to be the size of your company and the industry that you're in. So the size of your company matters because the larger the company, the more employees, the more chances that an employee might click on a phishing email or be socially engineered in some other way that could lead to an attack. However, your industry that you're in is probably the single most important characteristic of your business when it comes to determining the needs and the cost of the cyber liability insurance. So your business's industry will place you into one of 3 tiers. You're going to be placed into either low, medium, or high, and it's based on the level of risk related to the type and the amount of data that your business stores. The second factor that goes into it is the amount and the sensitivity of the data that you store. So a low-risk company, maybe like a retail business that uses an online portal to actually process credit cards and store credit cards, will pay far less for cyber liability insurance than a company like somebody in healthcare that stores social security numbers and private information for employees. So that depends a lot on regulatory compliance, and it also depends on if that data is stolen, how much is it worth, are there fines associated with that, and what would the insurance company have to pay out in that case. The third contributing factor is actually your annual revenue. So the more money you make in a business, the more risk that the insurer sees because the chances of a cyber criminal going after you increases. So a company that makes $2 million a year isn't quite as attractive as a company that makes $200 million a year or $2 billion a year. If you make that much money, you're going to be a much bigger target because you're going to be more visible in the marketplace, and cyber criminals will go after you in a more targeted way and try to extract more data from you. So remember, the annual revenue of your company will be a contributing factor to the cost of insurance. Coming in at number 4 is actually the strength of your security measures. So insurers are going to reward businesses that dedicate significant resources towards cybersecurity, and specifically towards preventing cybercrime in the first place. High-risk companies should be educating your employees about the risk and employ experts to install security protocols, monitor hardware, and security software to make sure that you have a good security posture. Also, in addition to that, you need to make sure you have proper procedures, policies, and standards, and a plan, in this case, an incident response plan, for when something does happen. And if you have all of that in place, insurers are much more willing to give you a reduction in the cost of cyber insurance than if you don't have it. And number 5 is really just the policy terms. So your coverage limits and your deductible on that policy are really going to dictate a lot of how much the premium is. Basically, the more money you're going to ask for, the more risk the insurance company takes on, the more the policy is going to be. Now, if you want your deductible reduced, there's a good chance that they will increase your premiums to cover the fact that your deductible is reduced. So think about that from a perspective of the terms of the policy are going to dictate how much your cyber liability insurance costs. The theme that kept resurfacing when I was talking to my agent that I was interviewing was when we were talking about the costs. He was really pushing back on the fact that if you have a good cybersecurity posture for preventing and managing cyber threats in your business, it's going to reduce the cost of your coverage because it reduced the risk of the insurance company. Just like other insurance products that you may have in your company, like general liability or errors and omissions, the more claims you have, the higher the insurance premium. So if you have fewer claims, you're going to get a lower insurance premium. Now, you also want to talk about managing your cyber risks. And that involves educating your employees. Make sure that you're hiring the right employees. Make sure that they have a good idea of what a cyber attack looks like so that they can take the suspicious activity and report it to your cyber team, or if you're outsourcing, to your outsourcer, in a manner that reduces the risk in the time of a cyber attack. So if you make sure that your staff understands that, you have the policies, the procedures in place, it looks really good to a cyber liability insurance company, and there's a good chance that they could drive down your premiums as long as you have the proof that that's actually implemented. You could choose to implement cybersecurity in one of two ways. You could have an in-house team. So if you're big enough, you can have an in-house team. That's cool. If you don't have the people on staff that have cybersecurity education requirements, so maybe a degree or certifications, like I have a CISSP, which is really good. If you don't have, like, say, like somebody like OSCP for like pen testing on hand, you're probably going to want to look to a third-party vendor to make sure that they have that. Because the other thing that cyber liability insurance companies look at are, okay, if you're putting in a security policy, do you have the requisite requirements for staff to actually do it? And if you don't, it's really easy to go out and get a third party to help you implement that. So even if you have internal IT, they may not be really cybersecurity focused. They may not know what they're doing from a cybersecurity perspective. They may have some good ideas, but maybe they just need a second pair of eyes to look over the policies and procedures and help implement better practices in the business. Now, let's move on to pricing. All right, let's say you've got a good cybersecurity policy in place. You've looked at the type of business you're in. You go to an agent. What are you expecting to pay? Well, right now, the average is probably going to be between $1,500 and $2,000 for $1 million of coverage with the $10,000 deductible. Now, that's not a quote. Don't misunderstand that. It's not a quote. That's the average. So that's something you got to look at, is you're typically going to pay between $1,500 and $2,000 for $1 million worth of coverage. So depending on how big of a business you are, it may be enough. It may not be. So when you're looking at your business, you have to understand what are all the costs that are involved with cyber liability insurance. And we've kind of covered some of that. Is $1 million enough? For most businesses that are smaller, sure. But if you're a $200 million business, a $100 million business, even a $50 million business, $1 million in coverage might not be enough. So then you're probably going to have some sort of multiple on that. And that's where an agent really comes and breaks it down for you. So just keep that in mind. $1,500 to $2,000 per $1 million of coverage, and there's probably a $10,000 deductible. Now, if you were to meet my source, he would deny everything. So I did this video to give you an idea of pricing, an idea of what goes into the pricing of cyber liability insurance, but there are other factors that I don't know about. There's going to be the data that they have. Cyber liability insurance, with being such a young insurance, they don't have decades of data on this. So they're kind of compiling all this and changing it on the fly. I'll tell you this, my cyber liability insurance has went up significantly in the last 3 years. Now, we are an IT provider. We do cybersecurity services as well, which puts us in a higher risk category for the insurance companies. So that's something that I have to go through a ridiculous risk assessment to even get a quote on insurance. So I hope this video was informative to you. If you have any kind of questions, drop a comment down below, subscribe to us, follow us. If you have any other questions, again, comment down below. You can also reach out to us. If you have any other content that you'd like to see us create, please let us know. We want to create content that you want to watch. We want to create content that gives value to you and gives back to the community. So I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. I appreciate you. Until next time, stay cyber safe.